Ever get the feeling there's more to that driver's license in your wallet than meets the eye? We're going deep on that today, specifically in North Dakota, and all those fascinating details you sent us about different license classes and exemptions. I mean, you don't usually think of driver's licenses as being particularly, exciting.
Right.
But North Dakota, well, they've got some unique rules, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. They've tailored their licensing system to their landscape and I think even more so, their industries.
So we're talking about like Class A for those huge tractor trailers, all the way to Class M for motorcycles.
You got it.
Plus, those exemptions, those seem like where things get really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So, for someone trying to wrap their head around North Dakota's whole approach to driver's licenses, where would you even start?
Context is key. North Dakota is deeply rooted in agriculture, right?
Yeah,
And that shows up big time in their licensing system. They've got to make sure farmers and ranchers have the flexibility they need out there.
makes sense. So, you mentioned classes before. What do those actually mean, practically speaking?
Think of them like levels in a video game. Each one lets you operate a certain type of vehicle.
Uh-huh.
Classes A through M, each with its own requirements, its own restrictions.
It's like choosing your character. So, most people starting out on this driver's license journey, where do they begin?
Class D, your standard car or small truck license. But even there, North Dakota's got some twists with exemptions for farm vehicles.
Okay, now you've got me curious. What are those exemptions, and why are they so specific to North Dakota?
Picture this. You're a farmer, got to get a load of hay over to the next farm. You might think commercial driver's license territory, right?
I would, yeah.
But North Dakota gets that farm work is seasonal, unpredictable.
Yeah.
So they've got these exemptions to give some leeway without sacrificing safety.
So it's a balancing act, keeping everyone safe on the road, but also recognizing those unique needs.
Yeah.
Now, we've got to dive into those exemptions, especially this covered farm vehicle exemption. What's the deal with that one?
Yeah, the covered farm vehicle exemption, that's a perfect example of how North Dakota's fine-tuning those regulations to match their agricultural focus.
So we're talking a whole separate set of rules for farm vehicles.
In a way, yeah. It can get a bit complicated,
Yeah.
but there's a reason for it. Take those hours of service rules
Yeah.
for truck drivers. Those are there to prevent fatigue.
Right, to make sure everyone's alert on the road.
Exactly. But for farmers, during harvest especially, those limits could be completely unworkable.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That's where this exemption steps in.
So if you've got a farmer rushing grain out in the middle of the night trying to hit a deadline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They've got some breathing room.
Yeah.
But it's not a free pass by any means. Still rules about how far they can go, driver's age, weight of the vehicle, safety always comes first.
Gotcha. So a carefully made exception.
Right.
You mentioned weight limits there. Those seem to be a big deal in all this. What's
Yeah.
the story with those?
They're crucial, really, for safety and to keep the roads in good shape. Heavier vehicles handle differently, put more stress on everything.
Right.
And in North Dakota, those weight limits, they change depending on the vehicle, the driver's age, if they're using an exemption. Lots of factors.
Okay, so say someone's under 18, operating a farm vehicle under this exemption we're talking about. What sort of weight are we talking about?
Good question. For drivers under 18 with that covered farm vehicle exemption, the limit's 50,000 pounds. Takes into account their experience level.
50,000 pounds, that's still pretty substantial. What about older, more experienced drivers? Do the limits change for them?
Yep, as you gain experience, the limits go up. For those 18 and older, the maximum weight allowed can change depending on if it's a single vehicle or a truck and trailer combo. It gets very specific.
Starting to see why those licenses are like keys to a whole other world.
It's a lot more than just driving.
Definitely. We've been focusing on the farm vehicle exemptions, but what about those other license classes, A through M? How do those fit in?
Good point. Don't want to miss the forest for the trees with all these exemptions. Each class is basically a different level of vehicle operation, from motorcycles all the way up to those huge tractor trailers, and each has its own set of tests.
Like climbing a ladder, each rung is a new skill set and more responsibility. Where should we hop on this license ladder?
We've touched on Class D with those farm exemptions, so let's jump to Class C.
Oh.
That's where it gets interesting for transporting larger groups or heavier loads.
Class C, lay it on us. What kind of vehicles are we talking about, and what makes them stand out in North Dakota's system?
Class C licenses, those cover a pretty wide range of vehicles, actually.
Oh, yeah.
You know those big passenger vans, the ones you see shuttling tourists around or taking kids to school? Those usually fall under Class C. And then you've got those larger delivery trucks. We're not talking those massive 18-wheelers, but the ones you see making the rounds for businesses. Those often need a Class C in North Dakota, too.
The workhorses, keeping things moving.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about those huge rigs we see hauling across state lines? That's where those higher classes come
And
in, right?
exactly. Classes A and B are for the big leagues. Class B, you're looking at a single vehicle, over 26,000 pounds, dump trucks, cement mixers, even some tour buses.
So more weight, more responsibility.
Definitely.
And Class A, those are the kings of the road, yeah.
That's right. Class A is for those tractor-trailer combos you see hauling freight all over the country. Takes a whole other level of skill and knowledge, maneuvering those things.
Wow. We started with a regular car, and now we're talking tractor trailers. There's a surprising amount of, variety within driver's licenses.
It's true. And we haven't even touched on motorcycles. That's Class M. Or all the special endorsements, like for school buses or vehicles with air brakes.
Yeah.
So much more to it than you'd think.
It's a whole system.
Yeah.
Our listeners probably got a head full of classes and exemptions and weight limits right now.
Probably.
So let's bring it all together. What's the one big thing you want them to remember from all this?
I'd say this. A driver's license, it's more than just permission to drive, right?
Yeah.
It's about having a system where everyone on the road's on the same page.
Yeah.
It's freedom to move around, but also responsibility, especially in a state like North Dakota, where transportation's so essential.
Well said. It shows how something like a driver's license, it can tell you a lot about a place. So next time you see a North Dakota license plate, think about all those rules and that expertise behind the wheel. Big thanks to our expert for guiding us through this, and to you, the listener, for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep those wheels turning.